now on Brookland News Live, Secretary of War or Defense Pete Hegseth set to testify on Capitol Hill. Coming up a little later in the hour, we're going to bring it to you live. Plus, we will take you to the White House, where just moments ago, the president met with the Lebanese Prime Minister. We'll air the full remarks, plus the president taking questions moments ago, the latest on the Iran war in that as well. Plus, right now in Brooklyn, the extreme heat, the heat index is up to 110 in some places. We've got an update on your forecast and how to stay safe in all this heat. Plus, the news about a K-9 officer that died this past week. Brooklyn News Live starts right now.
It's time for all the news you need and more. Brookland News Live starts right now.
And it is good to be with you. It is Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. A lot to get to this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It's good to be with you. Again, a lot to get to. We got a lot to talk about. We do want to note that we are monitoring right now Capitol Hill, where we do expect in the next few moments, we do expect here, coming up in about 30 minutes or so, that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense or War, will testify on Capitol Hill. We've got that live shot pulled up for you, and we'll bring it to you as soon as it begins. Want to note the big story of today, the president meeting with the Lebanese Prime Minister. This is a developing story happening over at the White House. Take a look at some of that video. This was outside the White House as the Lebanese president arrived there earlier this morning. The president holding a joint press conference with the Lebanese Prime Minister, as he does with as he does with so many of the foreign officials that join him there at the White House. So we're going to play that for you coming up here in just a moment. We are also following some breaking news on Capitol Hill that the UK Parliament, kind of like the Speaker of the Parliament there, essentially, is visiting on Capitol Hill. So we're going to bring you that coming up as well here in just a few moments. So a lot going on. We're going to talk about the Brooklyn heat. Also, it is so hot outside, you guys. So hot. Stay inside would just be my recommendation. We're going to talk more about that. Big stories, lots of stuff coming up. Stick with us on that. We're going to start you off first with the president meeting with the Lebanese Prime Minister earlier today from the White House. Let's take a listen.
And the relationship is very good. I think that Lebanon has been a very mistreated country for a long period of time. It's an amazing group of people, professors, doctors, lawyers, great intellects, and it's been hit hard for many decades, really. It's been hit very hard. And yet I have people that live in Lebanon, people that are parents of friends of mine, many cases, and they would never leave. They would not leave under any circumstance. They love it. They love the country, and it's probably a dangerous place in a lot of ways, but they live in areas, they say, we hear bombs going off all the time, but we want to live in Lebanon. They love the country. Very smart people, very successful people, and they live there. But it's been a country of great intellect, great intellectuals. They still love it. They want to be there. And we're going to help it. We're going to help it a lot. So it's an honor to have the president and your representatives here. We've already met a couple of times, and we've had some good meetings. And we are going to solve a lot of problems. We've already solved some of them for Lebanon. As you know, there's a Hezbollah problem. But we've done some things that I think the world will take notice. Again, it's been a very badly treated place and country, and we're going to have it properly treated and treated with respect that it deserves. And Mr. President, it's an honor having you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you
I've been
very
looking
much.
forward to this visit for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Meeting such a great president like yourself.
That's a very nice thing. See, he knows how to get to me. He can have anything. Now he can have anything. Would you like to say something?
Now, really, I would like to thank President Trump, really, and his team for the historic visit and for the historic achievement that we did together by signing the framework with the ultimate objective of ending the state of hostility between Lebanon and Israel forever. I think, Mr. President, this will be your legacy. Together, we'll be able to achieve this objective. It's about time for Lebanon and for the whole region to be stable and secure. And I know your vision is peace, your vision is stability, and I think my vision coincides with your vision. And together, I think we will be able to achieve and to score success in that regard.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. You have tremendous spirit on your side. You have people that love that country, and they're going to make it work.
We got to make it work.
Right. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Lebanon, I have two questions, one for you. President Trump, as you work to expand the Abraham Accords, Lebanon still enforces a 1955 law criminalizing contact with Israel for over 70 years. You previously stated you would push Lebanon on this issue. And there is some people still going to prison last month. So did you raise it with, you will raise it with President Trump today?
Well, the Abraham Accords have been, I think, a tremendous success. I think you're going to see a lot of countries joining pretty soon. As you know, we have our original group, and it's so successful for them. Economically successful. It's been nobody left, even during this time of conflict. So, no, I think Lebanon has a very important place.
What is your level of concern of a blockade of the Red Sea by the Houthi rebels, opening up another front in the war?
We'll see what happens. So far, it hasn't happened. It might happen. But we take care of things. If something like that happens, we take care of it. You know, we've done that with the Houthis before, and we haven't.
Alrighty, as you know, here at Brookland News Live, the live part is for a reason, because if we have a live feed, we're going to take you there right now. The Senate GOP speaking to the press. Let's take it live there and listen in. This is Senate Leader John Thune speaking. Take a listen.
That historically has been a bipartisan thing, and something that all of us, I believe, at least on this side of the aisle, think it's something we ought to be able to get done. And for all the reasons, and you look at the world today, national security ought to be objective and job number one. And for whatever reasons, the Democrats have walked away from that issue. So that's something. And then I would say, you know, there are other things out there: permitting reform, NIL. There are a number of things that, as I said, are candidates for bipartisan legislation. The question is going to be to what level the Democrats want to participate in that, and can we get 60 votes on the floor of the Senate to get some of those things across the finish line? So that's what it's going to come down to.
Initially, the president said that the war would last just a handful of weeks. Now it's been several months, and 3 more service members have died. They're asking for $67 billion in taxpayer money to fund this. Do you think the American public believes that this war is going in the right trajectory? Would you say it is going in the right path?
I think what the president did in response to the Iranians violating the ceasefire was to make it clear that we weren't going to tolerate that. And I think his objective is getting the Strait open. The Iranians are violating international law by blocking the shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz. So I think the president has, within his authority, obviously based upon not only the law, but also, I think, based upon the way the Iranians have reacted to the ceasefire and an unwillingness to sit down and actually make a deal, I think the president's actions are designed to force them back to the table. And I hope that that's effective and successful. We all do. And in the meantime, I think most of us, at least, believe that we ought to support our men and women in uniform and hope and pray that they're successful.
But Leader Thune, do you believe that the administration needs to be more transparent about their plan forward before Congress authorizes additional funding in the hundreds of billions of dollars potentially in a war supplemental?
Well, I think that the supplemental obviously isn't just about Iran. The supplemental is about replacing munitions, and there was a need for that well before. Well, a lot of it well before Iran. But let's assume your premise. I think that that is the area in which we have some control over issues like this, and the power of the purse, the ability of the Congress to weigh in on matters like this. But the request that they've submitted, I think, is something that most of our colleagues are going to be willing to support. There are some concerns about whether or not it'll be offset, whether or not it'll be paid for. There are concerns, some of our colleagues are going to be about it, is it enough? And, the level that's been requested by the administration. So we will have those discussions if and when we can get a bill like that on the floor. Right now, I don't know when that happens, but I know there's a sincere interest on our side in trying to accommodate the need that our military has to be prepared to face any kind of threat that we face around the world.
Leader, if you could ask, well, you have Chairman Cotton here for an update on Jay Clayton's nomination, whether you guys anticipate getting him through before the August recess, and FISA as well, the reauthorization with the status of all that.
The committee just voted to move Mr. Clayton's nomination to the Senate, to the full Senate.
What was the vote on that? Was that a party line vote?
9-8.
Leader Thune, Senator Fetterman has indicated that if Democrats officially become anti-Israel, he would leave the party. Have you had any conversations with him about maybe joining the GOP conference, and would you welcome him if he were to offer that?
Yes, we would welcome him. I haven't talked to him recently. I have had conversations with him in the past, as have many of my colleagues, about the challenges he faces in his caucus. And, you know, there are many of us who I think would welcome the opportunity to have him join the Republican conference. But, you know, ultimately that's a decision that's up to him. And as Senator Barrasso pointed out in his remarks, I mean, this is a party that's moving further and further, more radically, and to the more extreme left on a lot of issues. And I think people like John Fetterman, who have views that probably reflect a more moderate, or at least historically moderate, Democrat position, are really kind of people without a home. So if he ever comes to the conclusion that he's ready to move, we would certainly welcome it. Thank you.
Alrighty, Senate leaders addressing the press there, taking questions for just a moment there as we were listening again. We're also expecting that Senate Democrats will pull up to the cameras here and begin speaking. When they do, we're waiting for it and we'll take you there live. In the meantime, we do want to take you back to the White House, so give us just a second on that, and we're going to take it back to the White House where, again, as we were just listening to the president speaking to the press, taking questions from the press as the Lebanese president met with him at the White House. First, though, we do have some breaking news that we want to get to right now. This is breaking in the last hour or so. We are just learning that Kaylee Hoddle, the 18-year-old deaf actress best known for her role as Gia, in Godzilla vs. Kong and its 2024 sequel, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. She's died in a car crash in Frederick, Maryland in the early morning hours of today. So Hoddle was a passenger in a 1995 Honda Accord when the 19-year-old driver veered off the road and slammed into a roadside culvert just before 3 a.m. with excessive speed believed to be a factor. Now, 2 others were in the vehicle. The driver suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and another passenger declined treatment at the scene. Hoddle was rushed to a trauma center where she was pronounced dead. Her father, Joshua Hoddle, American Sign Language, shared the devastating news in a Facebook live stream using American Sign Language, saying he received a call from police about the crash, and then a second call moments later telling him his daughter's heart had stopped on the way to the hospital. Wow, just devastating. Quote, "I'm taking a flight that I never would like to take," he captioned the video as he flew from Texas to Maryland to recover her body. Hoddle came from a multi-generational deaf family with 4 generations of deaf relatives, on her father's side. So just sad news to hear again. Child actor Kaylee Hoddle killed in a car crash. We're going to sneak in our first break of the hour. When we come back, more of the top stories making headlines, and we will take you back to that. We're going to bring you the hearing on Capitol Hill with Pete Hegseth that's coming up here in just a few moments. Not only that, we will talk more about the questioning that Trump took from press earlier today as he met with the Lebanese president. We're back here in just a moment.
In a world that never stops, Brookland News is always there, bringing you news from Brooklyn.
Now to some news right now in Brooklyn. An increase to your trash pickup could be coming soon.
The Nation.
We're going to start first right now with the breaking news and the information that we know.
And the world.
In the meantime, though, we do want to get to the latest on the war in Iran.
Follow Jackson Mitchell and Brooklyn News.
And welcome back live here on the Brooklyn News Live. A live look at the White House right now. There you go. You see the scaffolding still being put up with the tarp with images on it of the White House put up there in front of it where we can see this camera right now. Okay, I want to take you back right now to the president taking questions as he met with the Lebanon Prime Minister. Let's listen back in.
Or described him as handsome and saying he could become one of the best leaders in the Middle East. How do you describe
Which one are we talking about?
the Iraqi Prime Minister? Yes. How do you describe President?
Well, I'd say he's handsome also, and I think he could become one of the most important leaders in the Middle East, actually, if we do this, because they've been trying to do this for decades, right? Decades and decades. So if I made that statement about somebody else, I would put him in the same category.
When the Israeli army withdraw from Lebanon, is there a clear timeline for
They're
that?
in the process of doing that. They're in the process of redeploying to other sections. And again, they get along very well. That was a great agreement they signed with Lebanon, and they're redeploying.
Mr. President, the Lebanese army needs help, and the United States said that it's very important for the Lebanese army to take over the villages that Hezbollah withdraw from. How are you going to help them, and how the CENTCOM is going to be
speaking
involved
about that today.
making sure
Yeah.
that you will be in the
We'll
south
be speaking
as well.
about that today with your president, and we have some very concrete plans already in store for that, with others going in and helping. But they're also becoming much more self-sufficient. And we will be speaking about that. That's one of the subjects we're going to be talking about.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. My question is, sorry, the Lebanese army said today that Israeli forces opened fire in proximity to the Lebanese trying to deploy in one of these pilot zones. This is day 2 of the pilot zones. Are you prepared to take any steps, additional steps to put pressure on Israel to withdraw, which I believe President Aoun is planning to ask you?
Well, I just heard about that before this conference just happened, and we'll be looking at that, yeah.
Mr. President, there are no signs that Iran is ready to stop fighting. So what is the plan? Is the plan to just keep bombing until they give up?
There are no signs. Why, do you know something that I don't know?
Well, they continue to attack our allies and
You
kill
don't know
Americans.
what the dialogue is behind the scenes, that they want to meet desperately to try and end it because they're getting decimated. You don't get that when you listen to your fake station, but you don't know. You don't know anything.
So talks are
do you know
still
something
possible,
that I
likely?
don't know? Do you know something I don't know?
Well, tell us.
I will tell you, they want to desperately meet, and until they're ready to meet in a meaningful way, we have no interest in even.
Mr. President, are you planning on putting any pressure or consequences on China for what you announced about them meddling in the 2020 election?
Well, we're going to talk to them about it. It took place a long time ago. I think China is maybe a little bit different today than it was then. But look, they do things and we do things to them. I'll be honest. We do things to them too. It's not a one-way street. But we'll be talking to them. Yeah.
Mr. President, it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but the Border Patrol recorded 14 consecutive months, no releases at the southern border. This is something you talked a lot about on the campaign trail, that you couldn't run on the job that you did on the southern border. Do you feel similarly at this point in time with midterms, considering how well of a job you've done? What is the lesson to be learned about Border Patrol?
Well, thank you for that question. The fact is, and maybe it pertains a little bit with respect to you and borders and everything else, we had a border that was totally out of control. I probably won the election, at least partially, on the border, would you say? And the border now, we literally in 14 months, I think it came out this morning, actually, it was just announced, and in 14 months we had nobody coming through, zero people. I have to understand, millions came through, and we had 0 people come in illegally into our country. And that's made by people that happen to be Democrats, largely Democrats, the people that do those stats. And I'm sure they don't like saying it, but we really had virtually nobody coming in, and they actually say nobody, not even virtually. So it's amazing what's happened there, and very people talk about that anymore. You know, they don't like talking about that. They don't like talking about Venezuela, where we lost no people. I'll be going to Dover for something that I feel it's a great honor for me to do it. These are people that want it, and they feel like I do, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. It's a very simple dictum. They cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't have. They're not going to. They have no chance of having a nuclear weapon. And as far as Iran is concerned, I'll let Pete maybe say a couple of words, but we are doing very well. We are degrading them at levels that nobody thought was possible. They're being degraded really so seriously. They did slip something through in Jordan, and if we had other operators, would not happened, unfortunately. But because we have the best equipment in the world, we've stopped almost everything. But when you let other people do your job, with the United States, we let other people do the job, and sometimes it doesn't work out so well. But we're going to be going and paying our respects at Dover. Pete, would you like to say just how we're doing, generally speaking?
Well, it'll be an honor as well to join you at Dover to recognize these incredible Americans who committed to the cause just like you are. Something no president's been willing to do. 47 years, they build up a conventional capability like the North Koreans did. Remember, that's how North Korea made their way to a bomb. So much weaponry that no one was willing to stand up to them. President Trump was, and it continues to this day. Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate, to show that they're reasonable on the Strait of Hormuz. But if they're going to shoot at commercial shipping, then we're going to hit them, as the president said, 10 times harder, which every night we're degrading them further and further. And the president has all the options necessary. If they want to talk, they can talk. Otherwise, they can deal with the War Department, and we're prepared to do that.
The blockade is up and fully, it's, nobody gets through. Nobody gets through the blockade. It's like a steel wall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, there was another attack on an ICE facility, this time in New York City. What, in your view, is prompting these attacks, and do you have a message for those who are attacking ICE?
You're talking about the fire that was set in front of the federal building? Well, this is what's happening with the people that they allowed to come into our country. They shouldn't have allowed them to come in. They shouldn't be here. They're radical lunatics, and I'm getting them out. We're getting them out at a pace. We've gotten rid of more than any other president. I read stories, they try and give you phony stats. I was with Tom Homan this morning. He'll give you the statistics if you want, but we're getting bad people out of our country at levels never seen before. There's never been a time when more bad people, and you take a look just here in Washington, we took out almost 5,000 hard-line, hardcore criminals, most of whom came in during the open border periods of the previous administration. An amazing statistic, and this is something that I hate to be talking about in front of the president of Lebanon, but he's got his problems and they're different problems, but we don't have any problems in Washington, D.C. We've wiped out about 92% of the crime, and we're going to get very close to, I believe we're going to get close to 100% of the crime. And if you take a look at this city, compare this to what it was 15, 16 months ago, this was a dangerous city. I don't know how, I better not compare it to Lebanon because I don't exactly have your stats, but it might have been Lebanon was safer. This was a dangerous city under the previous administration, Biden, and now it's a very safe city. There was an article that came out 2 days ago that Washington, D.C. has made the greatest progress of any city in the nation. Now, Memphis also.
May and June. They were wrong.
Alrighty, breaking news happening right now. You see there, Senate Democrats briefing the press right now. Senator, Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, the Democrat, speaking to the press. Take a listen.
Information about 100 of them have been withheld, which is disgraceful. Almost 20 American soldiers have now paid the ultimate price. And these headlines that we have here reveals the truth. The ceasefire collapsed. The war is escalating. American troops are paying the price. Iran knew it attacked our bases. The Pentagon knew our troops were wounded. The only people kept in the dark were the American people. That's not operational security. It's political protection for Donald Trump. And while our troops are being injured, Pete Hegseth was out marketing testosterone supplements. Nearly 100 wounded troops, but the Secretary of Defense found time for a sales pitch. Hegseth must answer for this today. No military family should learn from a newspaper what its government refused to tell them. Everything this administration is telling Republicans behind closed doors must be shared with the entire Congress. And Senate Democrats will now force another vote this week to end this unauthorized war and bring our troops home. Trump cannot hide the wounded and call it peace. Congress must end this war. On corruption. Trump's corruption is not a side story of this presidency, it's the business model. He's turned the presidency into the most profitable scheme of his life and left American families with the bill. This week, I launched a Democratic Senate effort to expose the corruption, show Americans what it costs them, and develop reforms to stop it. Take Trump's Truth API for $100,000 a month. Wall Street can buy early success to the president's market-moving posts, and in a millisecond, traders can make a fortune if they get this information first. If a White House aide sold presidential announcements to traders, it would be an earth-shattering scandal. And now Trump makes it a subscription plan. We said we were talking about corruption. Every day he gives us more proof, such as what he just did with Trump Truth, with his API. Then there's the $400 million luxury jet, the largest gift ever handed to an American president, and add another $1 billion to retrofit it. Trump gets the plane, taxpayers get a $1 billion bill. Warren Harding, generally regarded as the most corrupt president in history, was a piker compared to this guy. It is the Trump formula. He gets the gift, his wealthy friends get the advantage, working families pay the bill. Senate Democrats will follow the money, expose the deals, and at the end of this work period, we will introduce major legislation to stop this abuse. The presidency is not a family business, the White House is not for sale, and the American people are not Donald Trump's easy marks. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chuck. Corruption is notoriously rampant in the Trump administration, and it is not just the sort of corruption that is an offense against political propriety. It's the sort of corruption that lands in family finances, with Americans having to pay higher costs in order to fund Trump's corruption. One obvious example is the crooked scheme to blockade low-cost solar and wind power and keep the low-cost power from coming to the grid. So in order to meet demand, the grid has to climb up the generation stack to more and more expensive power plants. Those power plants then set the price for every electron on the grid. So it is a huge dispersal of money out of regular Americans' pockets in the billions of dollars of added cost. And if you look at where on the generation stack that added money goes, it goes to the fossil fuel plants. It goes to the fossil fuel dealers who fuel those plants. This is a billion-dollar-plus transfer of wealth, a deliberate extraction of wealth from American consumers to send it to Trump's corrupt big fossil fuel donors. It could not be more clear, if you have the slightest understanding of how the grid works, to see this corrupt scheme in action. If you want to look at another one, look at the great climate insurance collapse that is coming, that has already landed in Florida, that has already landed in Texas, that has already landed along the Mississippi coast, that homeowners are experiencing dramatically in their lives right now. And the Trump administration cannot respond to that because it is so corrupted by fossil fuel that it can't admit that the climate risk that's causing the problem even exists. So here are two huge costs, electric bills and homeowners insurance, that are clobbering American families, and the Trump administration simply cannot be trusted on either of those issues because of corruption. And of course, I'll conclude by noting that the root cause of all this corruption is the filthy dark money that has infiltrated our politics, and that every Democrat in the Senate has voted against that dark money every chance we've had, and that every Republican in the Senate has voted to defend that dark money every single time. Thanks very much. Senator Kaine.
Tomorrow at Dover.
Already a press conference being held there. We are going to interrupt because something, the hearing that we've been waiting for this entire hour is now getting underway on Capitol Hill. Let's take it to the breaking news right now. Again, that is live on Capitol Hill as the Senate Appropriations Committee begins their hearing, where we expect Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, General of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane, and Secretary of Agriculture Secretary Rollins are all expected to testify in front of this committee. This goes on the Senate, I should say, focuses on the FY 2027 funding, specifically the $87.6 billion supplemental funding request. Now, a part of that request does include a $61.7 billion boost to help pay for the Iran war. So Democrats likely to criticize that. Let's listen in.
Statement that it is open to discussing additional relief for other urgent matters is encouraging because there is strong interest from members on both sides of the aisle in discussing additional targeted relief. Turning now to the defense request, I look forward to hearing from our Department of Defense witnesses and their discussion on why the supplemental funding is critical to supporting our service members and protecting America's national security. There are certainly divergent views on this committee about the decision to use military force against Iran. The Senate as a body has already taken numerous votes on these issues and will likely continue to do so. But irrespective of our differing views about the military operations, the fact remains that there are must-pay bills and urgent requirements facing the department that affect the ability of our troops to be well-trained and more broadly of the U.S. military to deter and defend against potential aggressors worldwide. I would note that some of the requirements, such as the shortfalls in munitions, have been well known to this committee for some time, and prior to the conflict with Iran, there has been bipartisan support to address these shortfalls. While these munition shortfalls have been years in the making, they are growing increasingly urgent. We should not undermine the readiness of our service members for any engagement or refuse to rebuild critical capabilities. Our men and women in uniform do not decide where they are sent or the missions to which they are assigned. Congress has a responsibility to ensure that they have the tools, the training, and the support that they need to accomplish their missions. On the topic of our service members, I would be remiss if I did not note that since January of last year, the department has removed a number of senior generals and admirals from their positions, blocked or altered promotion lists across multiple services, and intervened in several senior assignments. A recent New York Times story reported that about 40 senior officers were removed from promotion lists, and more than 24 generals and admirals were fired or sidelined, including Admiral Lisa Franchetti, the first woman to lead the Navy. The Times further reports that more than half of those fired or removed have been female or Black. and that for the first time in more than a decade, no active duty female naval officers are likely to be promoted to admiral. I find this deeply troubling. These are men and women who volunteered to serve our country and swore an oath to support and defend our Constitution. Over the course of their careers, they have earned the support and the trust of their commanders and subordinates, led our men and women in uniform, and were selected through rigorous command and promotion boards. They have served under presidents and defense secretaries from both parties. Reports that women and people of color are disproportionately fired or sidelined create the impression that their service is not valued. This is likely to discourage well-qualified women and individuals of color from joining our armed forces, thus depriving us of their talent, dedication, and patriotism. The United States military is one of the greatest meritocracies in the free world. We need to make sure that it stays that way. I now recognize Vice President Murray for her opening statement.
Thank you very much, Chair Collins, and thank you to all of our witnesses who are here today. I first, too, do want to acknowledge the loss of one of our colleagues on this dais. Like so many, I was very shocked and saddened to learn of Senator Graham's passing. We disagreed on many issues, but there was no denying the energy that Lindsay brought to this job. And whenever we could, we found common ground and managed to get something done. So I just wanted to express that my heart goes out to his family, friends, and loved ones today. Now, I want to start with a few facts. 143 days ago, President Trump started a war of his own choosing with Iran. He did not consult Congress. He did not get authorization from Congress. He did not build a coalition of allies. He did not make a case to the American people, nor did he ever win their support. 2/3 of Americans opposed the war, and the president's decision had catastrophic costs. 17 American service members have now died, and that includes 3 who tragically lost their lives over the last few days, and another is still missing. Several hundred more have been injured, including nearly 100 who've been hurt just in the last few weeks. We owe all of them and their families a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. Thousands of civilians have also been killed, and this administration will not tell the public or Congress the true financial costs of this war, but we know it is very well into the tens of billions of dollars. Tax dollars we could have spent helping people afford health care or building new housing have now been lit on fire by a president who blundered us into a disastrous war. And the cost to families' bank accounts are staggering. Economic growth has slowed to a crawl. Inflation has shot up about 50% since this war began. On average, gas cost just under $3 on February 28th. Today it is over $4 and ticking back up with the strait closed again. Americans have now paid more than $70 billion more on gas since this war began. That is over $550 more per household. Fertilizer costs skyrocketed in the middle of spring planting, crushing farmers operating on extremely thin margins and costing families more on just about everything they buy at the grocery store. The costs of this war have been astronomical. And what has it been for? What has actually been achieved? We hear a different rationale for this war every few days. It was about preempting imminent threats, which we now know did not exist. It was about regime change, then liberating the Iranian people. It was about destroying Iran's nuclear program and its Navy. And at one point, it was about taking out its ballistic missiles until the president decided that actually, and I quote, It's a little bit unfair for them not to have some. Trump has even suggested the war is about taking Iran's oil to, quote, make a fortune. And now the United States' primary strategic objective seems to be to actually just reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which of course was fully open toll-free before this war began. President Trump has, by any objective measure, failed to achieve his goals. Our country is no safer or better off than before the war. In fact, we are considerably less safe. Our stockpiles have been depleted, and it will take years of production to fully replenish them, no matter how much money is thrown at this problem. Our global force posture is much weaker, and as assets have been moved now to the Middle East. And we are now much further away from a long-term solution to halt Iran's nuclear program than we were before Trump ripped up the deal that President Obama negotiated, which secured actual, measurable commitments and progress without ever starting a costly war. In fact, there are new reports that Iran may have moved nuclear assets into a mountain bunker, which raises concerns about whether Iran might restart its program. It used to be a pretty somber and serious thing, a president taking America to war and costing lives and taxpayer dollars. But this president has been downright flippant. The people I represent worry Trump thinks this is all a game and has sent men and women into harm's way without any sort of plan. And now that he's driven that car into the ditch, he wants taxpayers to bail him out. As the daughter of a World War II veteran and a Purple Heart recipient, the way this White House has blissfully operated with no plan for success is disrespectful to our men and women in uniform. These are patriots. They are highly trained and have sacrificed tremendously to keep us safe. They shouldn't be forced to put a show on for the president's birthday parade, or do the job of Border Patrol agents, or risk their lives in a disastrous war that the president clearly failed to think through. And as a U.S. Senator, this administration's refusal to explain what it is doing or how this war is protecting Americans, its refusal to seek authorization from Congress, and its expectation that Americans will now just pay for it all without any explanation or transparency is disrespectful, and it's insulting to the people back home that all of us represent. So here we are, 5 months later. The strait is closed. The ceasefire hasn't just disintegrated. This war is now spiraling out of control again. The president is threatening escalation and war crimes and suggesting this could be another forever war. He has told us over 40 times now that a deal is near and the war will be over soon. But now he is asking for $70 billion more, and for us to just trust him, it'll work out fine. Look, I've been very clear. My Democratic colleagues and I will do absolutely everything to ensure that we do take care of our service members and keep this country safe. Chairman Kaine, I hope you know that every Democrat on this committee deeply respects the sacrifices that you and our service members and their families are making. Everyone who signed up to serve our country deserves to be more than an afterthought in a war that the president decided to launch despite all the blinking red warnings. But my colleagues and I cannot and will not support rubber stamping a request to bankroll this war and whatever other misadventures Trump wants to get us into next. The American people want to see a quick and strategic...
Alrighty, you are listening into the opening statements being delivered right now at the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing. Again, we expect in just a moment the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and then the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kaine, and Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, all to testify on this new supplemental funding request that the president has launched. It's an $87.6 billion supplemental funding request. Now, inside of this is a $61.7 billion, essentially a boost to help pay for the Iran war and several other domestic programs. So we're monitoring that as that is happening right now live on Capitol Hill. We are also getting news in about the funeral for give me just one moment here. We're also getting in some news about the funeral for the now late South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, We know that this will happen next Tuesday, so just in about 7 days from now is the word that we're getting. And apologies here, I'm gonna read off my phone here quickly, but in recognition of Graham's decades of service, this was a press conference, press release released by his office. Quote, in recognition of Graham's decades of service in the Air Force, his remains will be carried into the U.S. Capitol by an Armed Forces body bearer team. Following arrival to the rotunda, the Armed Forces body bearer team will be replaced by a U.S. Capitol Police Memorial Guard in recognition of his service in the U.S. Senate. There will be a short program in recognition of Senator Graham's decades of service in the U.S. Senate. This ceremony will be closed to the public. The public is invited to view the live stream part of this ceremony. Quote, following the rotunda ceremony, his remains will depart Washington National Cathedral for a funeral service starting at 2 p.m. Service participants will include a tribute from President Donald Trump, with others to be announced. The Washington National Cathedral funeral service will be by invitation only. Invitations will be sent out in the near future. The public is invited to view the service on the cathedral's website or YouTube page. Following the funeral service, the late senator will begin his final journey to South Carolina. He will arrive to South Carolina one last time on the evening of Tuesday, July 28th. The departure from D.C. and arrival to South Carolina will be closed to the press. So you just heard that there. Announcement coming from, again, the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham. I wanted to bring that to you, as of course in these committees that we've been watching, at least throughout the last few days, that Senator Lindsey Graham was a part of. We know a memorial has been set up in his seat there. So again, we're going to take it back live into the Senate, where we're continuing to monitor that in just moments. We're also going to have your forecast coming up at about 1:57. We're going to bring your forecast coming up here in just a few moments. Let's listen back in.
Today to explain those requests, to talk about how this war forced one of the largest evacuations of our diplomatic posts ever, or to explain whether, as a national security advisor, he still thinks this war is, quote, the right decision, and whether he still, quote, believes in it strongly. So this is really a request to make taxpayers pay for the president's reckless decisions, from the Iran war to his trade wars to his global health cuts, all while doing nothing to help our families back home who are suffering because of those decisions. And that is what we should be focused on, helping people. Because as Senator Padilla and others on both sides of the aisle will tell us shortly, there are urgent domestic needs that we should be addressing instead of sending more money for Trump to drop bombs overseas. Priorities like disaster relief for our communities that have been ravaged by the unthinkable, or taking action to lower families' costs. You know what's a crisis right now? The fact that there are families I hear from back home who are working full-time and still being forced to decide whether to skip meals so they finally can buy their kids a pair of shoes. You know what's a crisis? The fact that hospitals are shutting down and kids are going hungry because of Republicans' cuts. Instead of bankrolling the president's war or sending ICE $70 billion, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle could work with us to quadruple our investments to cure cancer, or help families afford childcare, or help them afford to cool their homes. Those are policy choices. And Republican leadership has chosen to focus on funding war and ICE endlessly without a single cent for our American families. So let me close with this. This president says we can't afford health care. We can't afford child care. We can't afford housing. But somehow we can always afford another war. No price tag on that. Families in Washington State are skipping doctor's visits so they can afford groceries. Trump wants Congress to cut him a blank check for a war that no one supports. The American people entrust us to spend their taxpayer dollars strategically and thoughtfully. This is a huge responsibility, so let me be clear. I'm ready to work with my colleagues in a bipartisan way, as always, to address the needs of our nation and the American people. But I hope we can have real conversations about why there seems to always be money for Trump's wars, but never money for the families back home who are desperate for a little relief. So I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
I will now introduce our first panel of witnesses. Today, we're going to be hearing first from our colleagues, Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, Senator Ted Budd of North Carolina, and Senator Alex Padilla of California. I welcome all of you, and Senator Rounds will begin with you first.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to highlight why food security and national security go hand in hand. I'd also like to thank the Trump administration for recognizing that input pressures have made it more difficult for American farmers to support their own operations. In South Dakota, farming and ranching is more than a job. It's a way of life built on hard work, stewardship, and the hope of leaving the land better for the next generation. Feeding and fueling the world has never been easy. Producers continue showing up year after year despite drought, floods, disease, pests, volatile markets, and other challenges beyond their control. This supplemental funding request comes at a critical time. Farmers and ranchers are facing production costs that exceed market returns. Higher fertilizer, diesel fuel, seed, equipment, and crop protection costs, coupled with retaliatory trade practices and continued market uncertainty, have put enormous financial pressure on producers. Specifically, the projected loss per acre across the country in 2026 for corn is $131. For cotton, $342. For wheat, $114. And for soybeans, $80. While we work to strengthen America's ability to produce more of what we need here at home and reduce reliance on foreign supply chains, Congress should provide stability so producers can remain in business and continue producing the best food and fuel in the world. Today's threats extend well beyond weather and markets. Foreign adversaries, cyber threats, industry consolidation, arbitrary standards, and unfair trade practices impact farmers' ability to produce food, fiber, and fuel. Food security, energy security, and national security are connected. We also have an opportunity to strengthen both agriculture and energy security by permanently authorizing voluntary access to nationwide year-round sales of E15. Giving consumers the option to choose a higher ethanol blend would increase domestic fuel production, expand markets for corn growers, reduce reliance on foreign energy sources, and provide families with lower cost options at the pump. Given the significant defense investments included in this supplemental, I also want to emphasize the importance of fully funding our national defense. We are living in one of the most complex and lethal threat environments since the Second World War, and the brave men and women who volunteer to defend this country deserve the leadership, training, and equipment, along with resources necessary to maintain America's military advantage. Protecting America's food supply, energy supply, and national defense are not separate priorities. They reinforce one another. This supplemental provides needed assistance to help farm and ranch families endure today's economic challenges, while Congress and the administration continue advancing long-term policies that strengthen American agriculture. I urge my colleagues to support this supplemental request to provide stability to our ag producers at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Senator Budd.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon to provide a voice for the people in western North Carolina. More than 21 months ago, Hurricane Helene unleashed an unprecedented amount of rainfall on the Blue Ridge Mountains, causing severe flooding and devastating landslides. The storm left behind tens of billions in damage. In December 2024, Congress responded by approving a disaster supplemental that provided billions of dollars to Western North Carolina recovery. Additionally, North Carolina's state government stepped up by committing roughly $2.4 billion in state appropriations and redirecting more than $2 billion from state agencies for reconstruction. But the Blue Ridge Mountains' challenging terrain has made it uniquely difficult for federal programs to operate, resulting in delays and inefficiencies. And there's still work to be done. Too many projects in Western North Carolina have stalled due to insufficient funding or because of financial shortfalls from expensive debris removal and rebuilding efforts. I greatly appreciate that President Trump and Secretary Mullen have empowered FEMA to more rapidly reimburse the state and local governments for public assistance projects. However, FEMA is only one part of the equation. The Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Housing and Urban Development, and other federal agencies play a key role in disaster recovery.
Alrighty, I hate that we couldn't listen into much more of this because I'm very interested to see where this hearing goes, but as you know, we are on a timing constraint. Alrighty, let's take it right now live in Brooklyn. You are taking a look live there. But right now, you can see the big tunnel drive-through, a little bit of School Street there on that R-dot camera. Traffic doesn't look too bad, at least down School Street. I miss our 49 camera where we could see down the entire highway and the intersection, but that's okay. We get what we get. Okay, let's take it right now to what things could look like the next few days. Scattered showers in the forecast. As we go into the forecast tonight, my apologies. It's low of 71 right now, though it is 95 degrees. Let's talk about the feels like temperature, though. The feels like temperature right now here, sorry, give me one moment, is 99. It was 110 earlier this morning. Now we're in the peak of the day here, 99 degrees. It is extremely warm outside. Tomorrow, high of 85, low of 67. Cloudy skies continue into Thursday with a high of 84 and a low of 69. This heat only going to continue at least for the next 2 days. A reminder that you can find us at 2 p.m. tomorrow for the latest edition of Brooklyn News Live. I know on Friday we'll be here at 1 p.m. once again. So again, you can join us again tomorrow at 2 p.m. In the meantime, follow all of our social media pages. They've been scrolling at the bottom of your screen for the last hour. Have a great day and stay safe.